Hello class, I'm Brian Fraley. I chose Ireland as my country of choice for our presentation. The reason I chose Ireland is twofold. One, there's a big family history with it on both sides of my family. I have Irish. My mom, she did the DNA test, she's 17%, and then on the other side of my family, I don't know exactly the percentage, but I know that my grandmother was really big into Ireland. She loved the country. She always reminded us and told us grandchildren that we were Irish, we had Irish heritage, and that she wanted us to be proud of it. And then the second reason that I chose Ireland, a little more of a personal thing. I'm a big whiskey and bourbon connoisseur, kind of, I guess you could say. So I have recently discovered Irish whiskey. So I figured it would be a great combination for me to include both of those kind of in this presentation and learn a little more about the history of where I come from and see what else I can learn. So Ireland is a country with a long history. It's been around for way longer than the United States of America, where I currently live. It's a beautiful country. I got the chance to visit many years ago. I absolutely loved it when I was there. It wasn't there very long. And one of the biggest things that I took away was the green, the shade of grass that it is over there. My grandmother had told me that growing up, and when I finally had the opportunity to see it from my own eyes, it is incredible. The color that's there, it's absolutely wonderful, and I would love to go back again and see it. One big thing about the Irish, that in all of my readings and everything that I saw throughout the research, was they want to maintain their heritage as Irish. They're very proud of who they are, and they want to maintain that with who they are. Their country is an island. It's in the Atlantic Ocean, close to the United Kingdom. As you can see on the map here, this is the entire country. The United Kingdom is off to the side there. Then it's broken down into Northern Ireland, and then Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland as it's called in some situations. Most commonly you'll see it just referred to as Ireland and Northern Ireland, but it's technically the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Throughout history, though, it has been typically one country that has of lately become two. Food is a huge staple in my world. I absolutely love food. I enjoy it. I was raised with some of the Irish meals, the primary one always being corned beef and cabbage. For me, it's family tradition. We have corned beef and cabbage every St. Patrick's Day. I typically do it with just meat and cabbage. I don't normally have potatoes. Sometimes we add those, sometimes we don't, but most often I do not. Typically, if there's potatoes and or carrots in there, that's not necessarily a St. Patrick's Day meal. So it just kind of depends on what we feel like at the time. But their foods typically tend to be hearty stews and meat and potato type of meals. The Great Famine really shaped that. I'm not going to go into great detail on the famine, but the Irish famine that occurred, a lot of the poor people and the lower class citizens of Ireland had a struggle during the Great Famine, and many of them died. In my citation there, you can see Gerber discusses that in great detail. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time to go really in depth in that today. Another staple of Irish is Irish bread, specifically the soda bread. And it's found everywhere in the island, throughout the entire island. They have plenty of different breads. That is the big difference between soda bread and other breads that you'd see throughout the world that are leavened with yeast. Soda bread is leavened with baking soda. So it doesn't have any yeast in there to make it rise, although you might add some for flavor or such. But again, as that second line there, you can see there's many variations on the recipe. If you look up the recipe, you would find everything from fennel seeds and raisins to different grains being used, different seasonings. There's so many different variations on the food that it's really, you can make it your own. My understanding is that a lot of the different families have their own recipes for it. So if you go to different people or different families in throughout the country, you'll have different types of food. Next, we're going to talk about the language in Ireland. As the history of Ireland is very long, there's a long history of the language. I really hope I don't say this wrong, but the actual language that they use is Gaeilge, and it's translated into English is Irish. So as you can see here, I have Gaeilge or Irish. And I'm going to refer to it as Irish from here on out, just because that's the traditional language of Irish. And then if I want to, discuss the actual language that they're using today, would be Irish English, which is essentially English but with an Irish twist. Just as, in America we have our twist on it. United Kingdom, the traditional way English would be spoken, they have their way. So just a different variation on the same language. Some people today do still speak Irish, the traditional Irish language, but it's not as common. It is still enforced in schools and taught in schools in those places, but it's more common for that environment versus normal day-to-day speak. The Irish English that they use today was forced upon them by the English. When the English ruled the territory and the island for some time, they essentially outlawed and removed, or were trying to remove, Gaeilge. They failed in that effort, but the primary language is today Irish English, which is the standard English we would understand or we would hear. You can speak with them in other forms of English. It's not that you can't communicate with them, but certain words or phrases that they use will be different. And then all throughout Ireland, there are many different dialects, different versions of the way words are said, just the same as in America. How I grew up in the Northeast, we say you all. Down south, they say yaw. Same kind of premise here. There's different dialects throughout the country. There's primarily two religions in Ireland that they have. You've got the Roman Catholic and the Protestant. Both of those religions are very prevalent across the entire country. They're both practiced, and they're both the most popular. My understanding is they are the most popular religions in Ireland. And as we can see here, O'Malley discusses in his article many different conflicts that occurred. And unfortunately, I don't have time to get really in depth on any of them, but throughout the history of Ireland, there's been a lot of conflict with the different religions and different reasons. But the religions essentially fought throughout the years, but as of recently, they have started to come to peace a little bit. And you can see too there, the second bullet down, I have the flag. The colors green, white, and orange are actually representative of the Roman Catholics, and then the orange for Protestants, and then the white in the middle is supposed to represent the peace, trying to bring peace to both religions. And then the religious aspect and politics in Ireland are very closely held together. The church means a lot to the Irish people, so it's essentially it's a lot of what happens and occurs with them throughout the times. One really interesting thing that I found throughout my searching was one of the birthday traditions they have in Ireland. Essentially what it is they turn the child upside down and they bounce their head off the floor. Now they're gentle when they do it. They're not, obviously you're not going to try and break the child's neck, but they're going to gently bounce the child's head off of the floor for 1 year of each of that child's life. So if they're 8 years old, they'd get 8 bounces off the floor. This is said throughout history to bring good luck and fortune to that child. So I thought it was rather interesting to see that. The last thing I've got I want to discuss is something near and dear to my heart. As I said, I do like my whiskeys and bourbons. I've kind of recently found Irish whiskeys. I had Jameson, the original Jameson, not too long ago, and that's the first Irish whiskey I can honestly say that I reached out to try and taste and really enjoyed it. But Irish whiskey is supposed to be the first ever made. Callie talks in this article how Scotland and Ireland kind of battled between who was the first one, but the history shows and there's evidence that Ireland was actually producing whiskey before Scotland was. So they hold the title of the oldest whiskey, or the first whiskey ever made. For being such a small island compared to others, they have quite a few different brands. Maybe not necessarily as many bourbons as there are Irish whiskeys, but there is a big population of Irish whiskeys that you can choose from, and they all differ. You've got Irish whiskeys, I mentioned bourbons, which are American, and Scotch, which are from Scotland. And now we also have Japanese whiskeys, which are really getting into the market. But those are essentially the big three: bourbons in America, Irish whiskey, and Scotch from Scotland are the biggest ones you've got. But they all have their differences in them. And as I said, recently found Irish whiskeys, and the picture there with Proper 12, the Jameson Cold Brew, and the Jameson Caskmates, those are actually 3 Irish whiskeys that I have in my house right now. I do like and enjoy all 3 of them. You know, different people have different tastes, and I tend to, for whatever reason, like all 3 of these. I like kind of those coffee flavors and such, so it goes with that. And in my search of Irish whiskeys, I also found the oldest pub in Ireland is over 900 years old, and it's called Sean's Pub. As we can see, we discussed Ireland is a beautiful country with a very, very long history. The history is so in depth that I would not even be able to cover a portion of it if I had an hour and a half or 2 hours. The food, I grew up eating and enjoying Irish food, from snacks and desserts and different types of stews and corned beef and cabbage. Again, that's one of my favorite meals. I absolutely love it. And the culture of Ireland is very deep, and there's tons and tons of depth to it and different aspects you could go into. But they're good people. They are proud people. They have a long heritage, you know, and then of course they have their own brand of whiskey. They have that Irish whiskey, and you can't go wrong with that. So here I'll leave the citations on the screen for just a moment. Thank you very much.